Welcome to Big Valley Living. I'm Michelle. On tonight's menu is spaghetti. Our family has loved this recipe for years and years, and we're very happy to share it with you. The beauty of this recipe is that the leftovers can be used later to create meals without any effort. Stay tuned. We know you're going to love this recipe. The ingredients list that we'll be using this evening is 1.5 pounds of a lean ground beef. We use grass-fed because it is a little bit better for us. We're going to be using oregano, a little bit of olive oil spray to make sure that the meat doesn't stick to the pan, bay leaves, fresh pressed garlic, a tiny bit of garlic salt, about 1.5 pounds of mushrooms. This is just for video purposes only. 1 zucchini, some tomato paste, some tomato sauce, a little bit of wine in that sauce. And then of course we're going to put it over the pasta of our choice, which is a thick spaghetti, and top it off, if you like, with some freshly grated Parmesan. Let's get started. What I'm going to do is we're going to brown this ground beef, and we're going to add some spices to it to add a depth of flavor. The spices that we'll be adding to the meat as it browns is going to be some fresh pressed garlic, a little bit of oregano, and then maybe just a little bit of garlic salt to give it a little saltiness, not too much. I do want to say that I just got these really adorable cooking utensils from Truly Tailor Designs. I'll put a link in the comments below, but it was so cute because we have Big Valley Living on here. She also makes some really cute designs and we really like them, so thank you very much, Taylor. Anyway, I'm going to just gently break up this meat. I have the stove set at 5, which on my stove is about medium. I don't want it to cook too quickly, but we do want to eat this evening. Just kidding. So you want to keep an eye on it, and we will go ahead and get that browning. And as that browns, I want to go over a little something about garlic. We like to use fresh garlic. It's just sort of like cheese in our house. We like to grate our own cheese versus buying things in a bag. I will not use any garlic if the only alternative available to me is garlic in a jar. I will use garlic salt and garlic powder before I use the jarred garlic. So, to find garlic that's been made in the United States or grown in the United States, what you want to see is the root end at the bottom of the bulb of garlic, okay? If you don't see this, if you see it where it is smooth and there aren't any little roots, then they came from somewhere else, likely in China, because they have to take the roots off before they import them. I do want to support our local farmers, and I prefer to eat foods that have been produced in the United States as much as possible and with as much health consciousness as is possible as well. Well, the meat's browning. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how I mince my garlic, and we'll go ahead and get started. So what I need is a nice knife here that will allow me to smash it to get the paper off of it, and then my trusty garlic press. This is my favorite garlic press. I like the way that it comes out, and I use it for everything from spaghetti to salsa. So what I do is I just put this here, flat end of the knife on there. Make sure you're careful, don't go and hit the blade, which is why I use a thicker blade. Give it a little push there. We like garlic in our house, and if you've watched other videos, you know that. What we're trying to do here is just break the skin so that it'll pop off easily. Just get these done. I'm going to use a little more garlic than what I took off of this bulb. The bigger the bulbs, the faster the job. I will tell you that. I do scrutinize garlic before I buy it in the store because I don't want a bunch of itty bitty little cloves, but sometimes beggars can't be choosers, right? So I will chop. The best way that I've found is to do what I just did. Go to the end where you see a little bit of root, slice that tip off, and then it just kind of pops right out of the skin. And the longer you do this, the easier it gets. And if you have a better or different way of doing it that's handy, please let me know. I'm always up for suggestions to save time and effort. Okay, we're about 15 minutes into it, and this hamburger is breaking up nicely. It is browning, so really I'm going to just break it up with my utensil here. I like to use bamboo. Metal's okay because I don't use anything that can't use metal, but I don't know. It's not so abrasive and everything. So I'm going to break this up, and then I'm going to throw the garlic in. I'll show you how I press the garlic into the browning meat, and then we will add our oregano. Today I'm using Mexican oregano, but regular oregano that you pick up over at Costco is just fine. Okay, so that's browning nicely, as I said. And I'm breaking it up into bits that are not too big and not too small. I leave a few bigger bits in there for a good bite. And by the time we're done mixing everything in, it all gets fairly small. But I do want you to see for reference about how big some of them, the pieces are when we kind of start the process, okay? All righty. So let's get to pressing. And as you saw, I had several cloves of garlic. So I just filled this little chamber, and I'm going to press it. The manufacturer of this press says that you can squeeze the flesh out and still use, leave the skin on. But I really like to get as much of the garlic and the juice as I can. So that's why I still like to peel my garlic. You can do it the other way if you prefer. Ooh, that's a good one too. You can smell it already. And my hands are nice and clean, so don't worry about that. And then at the very end, I'll show you how I'm going to scrape the rest of the garlic off of the bottom of this. All right. So I'm just going to take the rest of the flesh out of there. Scrape this out with my finger. And there we go. I just like to get every little bit out. Now, to use your knife to scrape the very last part off, do not use the blade end. Use the back side so that you don't damage your knife in any way. Okay? Okay. So I have put in a good amount of garlic there. I'd say that if I had to quantify it, that was about 2 tablespoons worth of garlic. Now, that is plenty, but I am still going to put just the tiniest bit of garlic salt in there because garlic is really kind of what makes this recipe as delicious as it is. This recipe actually came from probably my grandma Jordan. And then my mother passed it on to me and my brother, my my nieces. And everybody adds a little something along the way. My addition to this recipe is zucchini because I like zucchini. And you never even taste it, but it adds just a little bit of thickness that you may want to enjoy. So as far as this oregano goes, I'm going to do about probably 2 tablespoons, right? So I don't have huge hands, so that looks like a lot more than a tablespoon, but trust me, it's not. And another one. And then when we make the sauce after the meat's browned, we're actually going to add just a little bit more spice in there. So this is not the end of the spices. Don't put yours away. Then I'm going to give this a little stir and slice up the mushrooms and the zucchini. So I'm going to give this a little stir, and while it completes the browning process, I will keep an eye on it, but at this point it's going quite well. I'm I'm going to turn it down just a tiny bit to about 4 because it's almost cooked through. And I'm going to go over and slice up the zucchini and wash and slice those mushrooms. Ooh, if you could smell this kitchen right now. I just turned that hamburger down just the tiniest bit more. But oh, I can't even describe how delicious it smells in here. I told you I was going to put a little salt, so I just have this tiny bit of garlic salt. And I'm going to put like maybe a pardon me. I'm going to put about a teaspoon in there. I just sprinkle it over the top there near the end. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to slice up these zucchini. And you don't have to be perfect. They're going to go in the sauce. They're not going to go in with the meat. So what I like to do, and again, they're going to break down, okay, is I'll cut these into quarters. I'm going to feel like I'm that fancy. Okay, so, and then I just kind of cut these little sections and have fun with that. Enjoy this music while I chop. Okay, I'm a home cook, not necessarily a gourmet cook. So this is about 3 cups of zucchini. And as you can see, they're just little quarter rounds. They're going to break down pretty quickly in the sauce when we get to that. Now I'm going to go get the mushrooms and I'm going to cut those up and we will start assembling our sauce. You're going to enjoy some more lovely music while Michelle goes to chopping mushrooms. All right, so there's one important thing I do want to let you know, and that is I just cut the ends off like that. You can take the whole stem if you want to do that, but that's what it looks like. And then I cut these into quarters because, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we're going to be making lasagna with the leftovers. So I want the mushrooms to create a nice transition in the sauce. I don't want huge chunks in the lasagna sauce. Okay, now I'm down at the bottom of this strainer that I've been using for my mushrooms, and I'm going to go ahead and rinse them off just a little bit because at the bottom they don't get as clean as the top mushrooms got. I'm just going to go swish it in the sink, but I wanted you to see that. If you see a lot of stuff on there, just make sure that your food's clean. All right, so this is just to show you. I just went ahead and rinsed them off again, okay? And oops, there's a little piece right there. So I'm going to go ahead and finish slicing these mushrooms up, and then we'll go and assemble the sauce. Okay, so I've finished cleaning and dicing all the mushrooms. Again, I kind of quartered them up so that they'll shrink down. And this is a lot of mushrooms, isn't it? We love mushrooms. Okay, so now we're going to get ready and start assembling our sauce. Okay, it is time for the sauce. So If you're like me and your fingernails just don't have that strength anymore, I have this nifty gadget. You can kind of get these just about anywhere. And it allows you to lift that lid with ease and not break your fingernails or, God forbid, rip your fingers apart if they're that bad. So we have 3 cans of tomato sauce. Now, this is how my mom always made lasagna. She'd just make extra spaghetti. We'd have spaghetti that night, and it depended on her work schedule, but sometimes she would just put the lasagna together the same night. Oops. I have found that it's a lot easier to make the lasagna the day after. See, I told you it was easy, and then I couldn't get it. So we actually, in our house, we just go ahead and put it in the fridge overnight, or maybe for 2 nights. And then the next morning we get up and put it together, or the next afternoon. So I get all my tomato sauce out of the jars, and for each can, there's going to be 1 can full of water. I use filtered water in our house and for all of our recipes, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and do right now. Then we're going to add the tomato paste, spices, meat, vegetables, and it's going to simmer for a couple of hours. All right, so plan B is to take either a spatula or maybe a spoon. Usually you can use a teaspoon in here, but I like to get as much as I can out. And try and put your sauce together before you put any spices, meats, or anything like that, okay? Because we're going to add just a little bit more water. And when we do, because tomato paste is lumpy, what we like to do around here is to go ahead and whisk that in. So I'm going to add a little bit more water, about the equivalent of this little guy right here. I'm going to add that water. Remember, the vegetables, we're also going to add water. Ooh, new tiny whisk. Okay. So get your lumps out. Don't worry too much. It doesn't have to be perfect. This isn't gravy, and it will cook down. But it helps to incorporate all of the tomato products when you get started. Okay. So the sauce looks pretty good. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do is throw in a couple of bay leaves. I buy these in bulk at our local co-op. Okay, oops, that was 3. All right, so I just only need a couple. I'm going to throw in a little bit of garlic salt in lieu of crushing more garlic, because I've kind of cooked it down gently in here. And note that the meat was never cooked so high that it scorched the garlic. You never want to scorch garlic because it gets really bitter. Okay, like an ex-husband, just kidding. Okay, all right, so we did that. We've already added a little bit of, we've added 2 bay leaves. We've added a couple more teaspoons of garlic salt. Now I'm going to add another couple of tablespoons of oregano. Please don't get scared of our spices around here. Once it cooks down, you're going to see that it really needed that. Okay. And we will give this a little stir, get it all together. The meat has cooked off and rendered what little fat there was. So I am not going to worry. And it's all browned up, and I'm not going to worry about draining it. If you had meat that had a little bit more fat than you'd like, I would suggest using maybe a fine mesh colander and putting it over a bowl. Pour the meat in there and let some of that fat come off, and then put it into the spaghetti, because you really don't want a big fat layer in your spaghetti. It's nasty. So I'm going to go ahead and put in our chopped vegetables. This is a lot, and remember, we're making many meals. So I go ahead and add the meat. And this is an 8-quart pot for reference. So it's a good sized pot. Let's put this off to the side. And now we're just going to get everything incorporated. Oh my God, you guys, it just smells so good. And the vegetables aren't even hot yet. Okay. So I get it all incorporated. And I'm going to do an overhead shot for you before we put a lid on it and turn the stove on to about medium high. I like to get it up to a rolling boil, and then we're going to immediately put a lid on it and take it down to about medium low to medium and let it simmer for about 2 hours, okay? You will want to check on it about every 20 minutes, especially at the beginning. Make sure that you stir it from the bottom to make sure nothing sticks, and then add water as needed. So I'm going to do this overhead shot so that you understand that it looks like there's not enough water until the vegetables render their own water. So this is what it looks like just into the pot. There's a little bit of fat from the meat that you can see because it hasn't heated up yet. But this is how it's going to look when you first put it in. If you don't want to have any zucchini, don't put it in there. But trust me, you won't taste it, and it will add vitamins and minerals, and it just adds a nice thickness to it. Got my stove on medium high. I've got all my ingredients in there. If you want to add wine, now's the time to add it. Maybe about a half a cup. Use wine that you would drink. Do not use some, the cheapest wine like Boone's Farm. Just kidding. Don't use the cheapest wine that you can find. If you won't drink it, don't use it for cooking. I'm going to go ahead and cover this, and we will come back in about 2 hours and check it. Our sauce has been cooking for 2 hours at a simmer, covered, and it's looking really good. The whole house smells wonderful. I got some water going in a pot for our noodles. Now again, we're going to have just thick spaghetti noodles. You follow the instructions for whichever type of pasta you choose to do. I am going to be boiling this for 11 minutes before I strain it, or drain it, pardon me. And put it in there. Once it comes up to a boil, which will take just a second, I'm going to go ahead and hit my timer for 11 minutes. And I know that this is going to be exactly right at that point. All right, so our noodles have cooked for 11 minutes. I'm going to go and drain them. And the next time you see me, we're going to have a lovely plate of spaghetti. All right, everybody, we have these 2 lovely plates of spaghetti sauce and spaghetti noodles, and we are ready for dinner here on this lovely evening in Northern California at Big Valley Living. Remember to like, share, and subscribe if you like this video, and to hit the bell button so that you know when the lasagna videos are uploaded, because that will be the next part of this little series, okay? So, a lot of times, just so you know, you can put any dressing on you want, but I just like plain old balsamic vinegar. You don't even need the oil and everything. It's really good. This particular one's nice and thick, and it's Oakwood aged from Napa. So, a little bit of bread, and we are good to go. Thanks again for visiting Big Valley Living and enjoying our lovely spaghetti dinner. Please remember to subscribe, like, and share, and hit that bell so that you're here for the next video. Have a great night, everybody.